Welcome friends to another r/NuclearRevenge video. Today we've got a crazy prom night story, but first make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below so you never miss any of my daily videos. That said, our first story of the day is Prom Night Ruined. How I got back at my stepsister for ruining my dress. A few years back, my dad got married to his model girlfriend. She's a very nice woman and I met her children twice. The first time was when my dad threw her a birthday party, and the second was when we all had dinner together and dad proposed. Her first child had just gotten into college at the time, and the second was a year and some months older than me. The two times we met, we talked about school and her friends, and I thought she'd be a sweet person, and that I'd finally gotten a sister, but I thought wrong. I didn't get to see the nasty side of her until our parents moved in together. My stepsister was the nastiest, most selfish, and self-centered person I had ever seen. She somehow thought the world revolved around her and expected everyone to do her bidding. It was exhausting, so I mostly avoided her. A few weeks before my quinceañera, I was very excited to dress up and have a party. My mom sent a dress from the UK, but it was a bit bigger and not a good fit. I wasn't happy about this, but since my stepmom is a model and has a good relationship with people in the fashion industry, she found me a very nice dress. It was a lacy royal blue dress and it was lovely. When I wore it for everyone to see, my stepmom and dad gasped. It was a lovely dress. "Don't ever take that dress off," my stepmom exclaimed and hugged me. I had not had a birthday party since my parents got divorced. So my dad was very invested in ensuring that I have a good party for my quince. This probably annoyed my selfish, self-absorbed stepsister. She kept pouting and didn't want to get involved. One day I was in the kitchen reading a novel and eating chips when my stepsister asked if I was busy. I was irritated, of course. I was busy reading, but I knew she didn't care about that. She once barged into my room in the middle of a phone conversation with my mom to rant about her mother bothering her. Even when I pointed out the obvious to her, she just shrugged, said sorry, and continued to talk. Anyway, I asked her what she wanted, and she asked if she could ask for a favor. I just knew she wanted something. I know how she looks when she wants something. She folds her mouth up and tries to make a puppy look. I think she looks terrible when she does that, but it seems to work for her, or else why would she keep doing it? She says, "Can I borrow your dress?" I say, "Sure, what dress?" She says, "The blue dress." I didn't have any blue dress that I know of, and I didn't think she could be asking for the dress I got for my quince. I say, "I don't have a blue dress." She says, "You do, the one mom got you last week?" I wasn't sure I heard right. I started to wonder if she thought I was stupid. I say, "You want to borrow my quince dress?" "Yes," she made the ugly puppy face. "I want to wear it to homecoming. The dress is so fine, plus I want to be voted homecoming queen." I say, "But it's for my quince." She rolled her eyes and sighed. "It's just a queen's party. This is homecoming, and the crown's at stake." I say, "It's pronounced quince. Quinceañera," I said, very irritated. She said, "Okay, whatever, but hey, this is homecoming. Please do this for me." I say, "I can't do that. I may be open to you borrowing it after my party, but not before my quince." She says, "Oh God, why is this quince thing such a big deal? How about I trade you? You give me that dress, and I'll give you an even better looking dress." I say, "No thanks." She says, "Really? The dress is blue anyway. It doesn't compliment your eyes, but it'd look really good on me because I have blue eyes." I was annoyed at that point, and I did not want to start a fight, so I simply ignored her and continued to eat my chips. She says, "Yes?" I say, "No, there's no way I'm going to change my mind about this." She walked away and returned more than 30 minutes later in my dress. I was angry and I wanted nothing more than to move closer to her and slap her across the face. I say, "Why are you wearing my dress? What's wrong with you?" She says, "Calm down, babes. I wanted you to see how good it would look on me. Listen, I'll give you a better dress. I have a really beautiful dress you could wear." "Well, I don't want any of your beautiful dresses," I shot back. "Take off my dress and give them to me, and don't ever touch my stuff without my permission ever again." She says, "Why are you being so loud? Chill, it's okay if you won't lend it to me. Can I at least take a picture to show my friends?" I say, "No, you cannot, and please take off my dress." She rolled her eyes. "Take it off now." I hated raising my voice, but I shouted. She says, "Hey, not in the kitchen. Come on, I'll take it off in your room and put it back." "I don't get why you're so angry, it's just a dress." I decided I was going to tell my dad and stepmom about it, but the two of them were away for a destination wedding, and I would have to report to them when they returned. I had no issues with my stepsister judging me, acting like a diva around the house, and violating some of my boundaries, but walking into my room to take and wear my clothes was extremely rude and disrespectful. My stepmom returned home the day after, but my dad had to fly to another state on a business trip, so I mentioned to my stepmom how disrespected I felt by her daughter's actions and request. She apologized and promised to talk to her and make her apologize, but I suspected she wouldn't do that. She would either not speak to her, or she would, and my stepsister would blatantly refuse to do it without her mother enforcing any consequences. The truth is, my stepsister is a brat, and I blame her mom for it. She never says no to her, she never enforces any punishment or makes her do anything or even behave well. It was almost like she was scared of even correcting her. It turned out my stepmother did speak to my stepsister because she did knock on my door later that evening to apologize. I accepted her apology and happily looked forward to my keens. Not only was it my first birthday party in a while, but I also looked forward to looking good, being the center of attention, dancing with my friends, and meeting my 2-year-old half-brother for the first time. On our school's homecoming day, my stepsister said she wasn't going for homecoming and would be visiting her best friend instead. She left that morning. I didn't care about that, of course. My stepmother was taking me to the mall to get nice shoes later that day anyway, so I barely had time to wonder why my stepsister, who's extremely obsessed with looking good and being the life of every party, would miss homecoming. My birthday was on a Saturday, and my keens was to take place the evening of the next day. On that Sunday, my mom arrived in the morning, my dad took me to the hotel to see her, and I was excited to finally meet my half-brother. I stayed back for a while to chat and catch up with my mom, while my dad went back to our house to supervise the decoration. Later, he came to pick me up so I could start getting dressed. The makeup artist was around when I got home, a very pleasant woman my stepmom hired. I decided to take a quick shower before getting started, and on entering my closet, I noticed my beautiful dress had been tampered with. It just was not sitting right in the large white box it came in. When my stepsister tried it on and replaced it, I'd gone back to my closet and took it out carefully to refold it. It had to be that she came back to try it on again. I took it out of the box and was horrified at the smell that greeted me. I immediately suspected that she'd worn my dress anyway. The dress reeked of alcohol and sweat, and it looked dull and certainly not new. When I raised it, I noticed it had ripped at the hem. Anger did not quite describe what I felt. It had to be my stepsister. No one else could have done that. I decided to check her Instagram page. My stepsister posts everything on Instagram. She definitely would have taken pictures of herself at homecoming. I was correct. She wore my dress to her homecoming. I was so mad that I started to cry. My dad knocked to tell me the makeup artist was waiting. I pay her hourly and she's expensive, he joked. I was still crying and I guess he heard me. Sweetheart, what's going on? I couldn't even bring myself to respond. I had planned to have the most seamless keens, and now my stepsister had ruined it. My dad left and returned later. Can I come in? I didn't want him to worry, so I managed to say yes. He carefully walked in like he was afraid to upset me. What is it, honey? Did your mother say something to upset you? I say no. He says, what is it then? Are you nervous? I showed him the rip on my dress. Is that the dress? He asked, looking quite surprised. I started to cry again, and my dad could not reconcile this ripped, smelly, bent out of shape dress with the dress I had worn for everyone to see when my stepmom first brought it home. What happened? My dad was angry now, and I could see that in his eyes. When I told him my stepsister wore my dress to her homecoming and ruined it, he simply walked out. I heard him yelling from downstairs some minutes later, so I dashed out of my room. He and my stepmom were arguing and he was visibly infuriated. She spent a whole year planning for this day, and I would not have anyone ruin this for her, I heard him say. Just in the middle of the argument, my stepsister walked in. What the heck have you done? Her mother screamed at her. She looked confused, but when she looked up and saw me at the top of the stairs holding onto my dress, she probably understood. She looked away and started to cry. I'm sorry, she said, sobbing. My dad hissed and walked out. How could you do this? You have lots of dresses. You could have asked for a new dress if you wanted one. How can you be so selfish? I could have sworn my stepmom was going to hit her. She was moving close to her and almost shaking in anger. She didn't hit her anyway, but she came to me and took the dress to examine the level of damage done to it. "My God," she exclaimed. "Even if we have it laundered, what about the rip? It's getting late." She pressed her palms to her face. "I can fix it," my stepsister muttered. "I can sew. I learned to sew in—" "Shut up and get out," my stepmom interrupted and started to charge at her. She fled the living room. I was going to thank my dad and stepmom for their efforts and not have the party, but I decided to. I was not going to let my stepsister ruin my day, and I know my dad had spent so much on planning the event. My stepmom and I went through my wardrobe and eventually settled for the dress my mom had sent earlier. My quinceañera went well, and my friends and I did have a lot of fun, but I earnestly wished I had worn that blue dress. It was so lovely, and I could not forgive my stepsister for being so mean. I decided I was going to get back at her. After my big event, her mom made her apologize to me at the table during breakfast. I told her I'd accepted her apology and acted as if I had forgiven her. What happened put a strain on my dad and stepmother's relationship, but they eventually moved on too. A month before her prom, my stepsister and her friends had already started to plan for prom. They had saved up many pictures of dresses they could wear on their phones and were very excited about it. I decided that it was my time to plan my big revenge, and I considered stealing her dress or ripping it too. I decided against that. My stepsister was smart, and she could suspect I would plot my revenge and hide her dress. Plus, it would be very obvious that I did it. I couldn't think of anything until the day of her prom. Her best friend was getting ready with her in our house, and they hadn't eaten all day because they wanted to look good in their dresses. My stepsister is allergic to onions. I remember this from the first time we met at her mom's birthday party. Her brother had mistakenly eaten onions, and his face and tongue swelled up so bad that their aunt had to rush them to the hospital. It was then that my stepsister told me that she was also allergic to onions and that their dad was too. Armed with that information, I went down to the kitchen and started to make a salad. The makeup artist came over and helped my stepsister and her friends get ready. When their dates came over to pick them up, I heard my stepmom wearing them down to eat something. "You ladies have to eat something, even if it's just grapes." They both came into the kitchen. "Wow, you look gorgeous," I exclaimed. They thanked me and giggled. My stepmom was behind them trying to make sure they ate something. "I don't want you having sodas or alcohol on an empty stomach." They say, "Calm down, Mom, we won't be drinking alcohol." My stepmom rolled her eyes. "Would you like some salad?" I asked my stepsister's best friend. "Thank you," she said, and I served her a small portion. I expected that my stepsister would ask for a portion too if she saw her friend eating, but she grabbed her best friend's portion and started to eat it. How typical, I thought to myself. Her best friend laughed awkwardly and I served her another portion. The two ladies and their dates hurried away before stepmom could take more pictures of them. I'll admit that at some point, I worried that my plan wouldn't succeed because nothing happened. Perhaps there weren't enough onions in it. I'd cut the onions into very tiny pieces so she wouldn't notice right off the bat. About 10 minutes later, they returned. My stepsister's best friend called very loudly for my stepmom, and we both rushed outside to see my stepsister screaming. It was a funny scene because her tongue was badly swollen, so she couldn't even scream. She was just making a very funny noise. I could not help chuckling, but she noticed it and grabbed my hair. My stepmom and her date pulled her away from me. She kept trying to tell her mom that I did it, but she couldn't speak, so she just started to cry. My stepmom rushed back inside to get her purse and drove her back to the hospital, while her date and best friend went back for prom. For someone like my stepsister, she was devastated. I'm certain she looked forward to stealing the show at prom, and she had a good chance of doing that in her lovely dress, makeup, and accessories. I spent that night laughing hysterically. Luckily, I was home alone, so no one heard me. When they returned from the hospital, she tried again to attack me, but her mom held her back, and I ran to my room and shut the door. The next day, my dad asked what happened. I told him I'd made myself some salad and offered it to her friend. She didn't have to take some of it, but she did. I also lied about not knowing that she was allergic to onions. My dad assured my stepmother that I could never have done that, and she believed him. I was a good kid after all, and had given them no reason to think I could have done it. To this day, my stepsister keeps telling everyone she saw me laughing, but no one believes her. Do you guys think that regardless of what they've done to you, that allergies are something you should not use as a form of revenge? Like, depending on how bad that allergy was, it could have been life-threatening. I mean, they went to the hospital. So do you guys think that this revenge OP took out on their stress-ruining, backstabbing stepsister was justified? Or do you guys think OP crossed some lines they really just shouldn't have? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And our final story of the day is exposing my awful father. Before I begin to explain how crappy my father is, I'll say the names and ages of everyone in my family. I'm the oldest girl at 18 and I have 3 younger siblings. My brother, we'll call him C, is 17. The sister just after him, let's call her A, is 10. The baby of the house is 5 and thankfully we've been able to protect him from a lot of the things we faced when we were younger. My brother C and I were born to my parents when they were in their mid-20s and living in a much better situation. They had easier lives and things just worked out for them. They had their own house, hosted nice parties, and were still friends with their college friends, who were always in attendance. They also had really good jobs that paid well. Somehow, the wheels of fate turned on them and things started to go really bad, really fast. Large sums of money were lost, someone forgot to pay the mortgage, and the house was taken away. All of their friends were suddenly too busy to help them out with favors. And they had 2 screaming toddlers who still needed to be looked at 24/7. They eventually had to move to a different town, sell a lot of their belongings, and take loans to be able to get a smaller but livable house. Of course, we as their children had no idea that this was going on with our parents. All we knew how to do was eat, mess things up, and sleep. We were forced to grow up a little quicker than we should have. Our mother was able to find a job, but it was harder for our dad because he considered himself an intellectual and was too good to work manual service jobs that paid less than minimum wage. He tried for higher up jobs, but the problem with getting them was that you needed to live in a more expensive neighborhood and at least have a car to get to them, neither of which my father did. So he was stuck in the same cycle of applying to jobs over and over again, but not getting any kind of positive response from them. He was advised by my mother to start small with the service jobs, but he was adamant about trying for something that would get us out of the situation we were in just a few months. It didn't work out, and that eventually depressed him enough that he turned to alcohol as his vice, and left my poor mother to handle things on her own. As the first child, I became the official caretaker of myself and my brother as soon as I turned 7, collecting food stamps and almost expired cans of food from the back of grocery stores, preparing easy lunches like sandwiches and ordering pizza when my mother didn't come home on time, and occasionally my father's beer and cigarettes. I learned to cut coupons and spot good 2-for-1 deals to make our lives easier. It was a pretty good dynamic that we had, until a year later when my mother fell pregnant with our 3rd sibling. It felt like a breath of fresh air, and everyone else was happy, but my father was filled with so much rage, not wanting my mother to carry another child. As young as I was, even I knew that the situation of things was not very good. They also didn't do a good job at hiding their arguments. So I heard all of his attempts to get my mother to get rid of the baby because it would stop her from working. She refused to listen to him, which caused a lot more fights between them, fights that turned physical sometimes. Our mother is a stubborn woman, so she didn't listen to my father and continued to work and provide for the family until a week before she was due to give birth. After she had my sister, my father had to take up more responsibility because she had to heal. It annoyed him that he had to do something responsible for once, especially as he'd been on his butt for so long. And although he did get a job, he was a major jerk to us at home and put it in our faces whenever he could that he worked for the money now and could do whatever he wanted, which included buying copious amounts of alcohol and getting wasted nearly every night. We knew that we didn't have much of a choice. So we continued to live under his tyranny so that he wouldn't get mad or drunk enough to hit us one day. A few months after our mother had recovered from childbirth, she went job hunting again and found an even better job opportunity than her last one and got started immediately. From a young age, she let us know that the only reason she tried so hard to get a job was for financial freedom. It was a good mentality to have, and it definitely saved us when my father decided to abandon us after my mom got pregnant with our youngest sibling. There was no sign, as he was being his normal jerky self to us one day, and then the next day, he was gone. We tried to look for him, but soon we realized that he'd made off with a few of his most prized possessions. There was no way he was kidnapped if he remembered to take his favorite jacket and boots along with him. I was old enough to get a job to support the family, and so I did. It was hard, I'll have to admit, but my mother had managed to make us understand that we didn't have it easy and we had to work. Sure, we still had our differences as a family, but we knew how to put it all aside when we needed each other. The few months following my father's elopement were the hardest, and we had basically no family living around us. My mother was an orphan child, and my father had just one brother that he didn't speak to run to when we needed help. And our mom had way too much pride to ask anyone for any sort of help. I worked 2 jobs, and my brother worked one just to make sure we could pay the bills and have hot dinners and breakfasts. It was a lot for a 16-year-old me, but I powered through for my family. Sometime last year, the universe seemed to smile down at us, and my mother got a job as a virtual assistant for a huge company. I managed to graduate high school and was promoted to assistant manager at one of my jobs, while my brother entered senior year and also took over my former position. We had enough money to move into a better house, and so we did. For the first time in a while, we didn't have to worry about the electricity getting cut off, or if we would have enough to eat. We weren't rich, a little far from it even, but we were pretty comfortable. The baby of the house was turning 4, and we decided to throw a birthday party for him. His birthday coincidentally falls at the same time as Thanksgiving, so it's usually one of the only things that we celebrate. The other being Christmas. Friends from school, work, and the neighborhood made their way up to our house to celebrate with us, and we were generally having a good time until he showed up. After 3.5 years with no contact, my father somehow found our new house out, and he showed up at our little brother's birthday party / Thanksgiving celebration, looking as if he were about to pass out on the next second. His clothes were dirty, and he looked as if he had trekked 3 states to get to us. My brother C and I's initial response was to kick him out and ask him to never return, but my mother was against it. She told us to be kind and decided to end the party just to hear him out. We were still hesitant, but we did as she asked. Now, something you should know about my father is that he is literally the most manipulative man on earth. He is a narcissist and loves to take advantage of people. As tough as my mother thought she was, even after these years, my father still knew how to get to her. And in no time, she had tears in her eyes at his stupid sob story. C and I couldn't believe our ears. We tried to talk my mother out of her decision, but it was like our father had put a film over her eyes and made her immune to common sense. No one liked him around the house, not even the little 4-year-old, and he liked everyone. We, the kids, soon found out that our father had no plans of getting in our own good books. He was slobbery, lazy, and messed up things deliberately, so that when we tried to complain about him to our mother, it seemed like we were making things hard for him on purpose. We were eventually able to settle into a dynamic for the peace of our mother, showing respect and pretending not to notice some of the annoying things he did. As the days passed, our father seemed to actually want things to work with our mom, so he started to be very sweet to her, getting her flowers and promising to be a better man for her. We, the kids, had not started to warm up to him yet, but pretended to for our mother's sake. He even said that he got a job down at the local warehouse as a loader, and we all believed him, until our mother sent us to give him lunch one afternoon, and we found out that there was nobody with his name that worked there. It was at that moment that we knew that we needed to figure out exactly what he was doing when he told us that he went to work. Since C and I had to work in the daytime, we asked our 10-year-old sister to sneakily follow him around until she figured out where he was going. She's a very smart kid, so it didn't prove a chore to her. Plus he, our father, was always the last to leave the house. A discovered that our father went to different addresses nearly every day of the week, and she noted them down. Unfortunately, before she could do more for our little investigation, someone reported to our mother that she wandered too far from home and she got grounded. C and I took on the job, and we found out that our father, who had basically been love bombing my mother for almost an entire month, was cheating on her with some of the people that were supposed to be her friends. We were determined to expose the lot of them to our mother, but we needed concrete evidence. So I bought and planted a small microphone on the jacket that he wore every day, and it was connected to my system so I could have access to the audio files. Christmas was coming up, and we had the most perfect present to give him. For the days leading up to Christmas, we pretended that everything was normal and kept ourselves very busy so that we would not spill the surprise before the designated time. On Christmas Eve, we put a flash drive filled with audio and picture evidence of our father's infidelity inside the presents that he got for her, and we waited for her to open it. Our mother didn't open the flash drive till later that night, but when she did, she and our father had a huge fight, which resulted in him being kicked out of the house. We were glad that she finally saw how he was cheating on her with 3 of the women that were supposed to be her friends while pretending to work and instead stealing from her money to buy her things. It was sick and twisted of him, and honestly, we were just happy that our mother had finally seen the truth, but she had other plans for revenge against him. She first filed for divorce, and then brought up the fact that he abandoned her while pregnant and made her work too. The trial was long and exhausting, but he got ordered by the court to pay a large sum of money as compensation to her. The pictures that were in the flash drive, alongside the audio, were published on Facebook for all to see, and my mother's 3 former friends were exposed as cheaters. It's been a little over 7 months since the divorce, and my mother's dating again. Although her ex-husband still tries to speak to her from time to time, she's much wiser now, thanks to her children. I think this actually highlights a good point about if you care for someone or you were or are in love with somebody, a lot of times you can convince yourself that going around on this carousel again, this next time's going to work out and it's going to be perfect and they're going to change. Sometimes it's hard to stop believing in that carousel improving the next time around until you finally see the hard-hitting proof that that carousel is never going to just magically get better. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another revenge story that was way crazier than either of the ones in this video, click on that left video, or if you missed my latest video, check out the one on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.